Chapter 68. Hsi-feng examines the servant and so finds out the master's deceits. The unhappy Yu girl allows herself to be hired into a trap. The third Yu was coffined on the very day of her death and was buried very quietly outside the city walls. The news of her sudden death was brought to Aunt Hsui's ears by a waiting maid. Aunt Hsui was profoundly grieved and dismayed. She had been delighted to help arrange the wedding with the third Yu out of gratitude to the cold knight for having saved Hsi-feng's life on the high road. She had intended, moreover, to give him a complete house with furniture as a wedding present. "What do you think of this sad, puzzling occurrence?" she asked her daughter Pao. I with a sigh. "The poor thing was engaged to the cold knight, your brother's sworn friend, and now, shortly before the marriage, she has taken her life, and her fiancé has since disappeared without leaving a trace. That confirms once more the truth of the old saying that human fate is as incalculable as the course of the wind and the form of the clouds. Between evening and morning our fate can suddenly change for good or for ill. It was her predetermined destiny," concluded Pale Chai philosophically. "But what is the use of brooding and complaining? She is dead and it cannot be helped, and we cannot bring her back again. Get over it and turn your attention to our own lives and our own affairs. See, brother Hsi-feng has already been back from the south some weeks, and meantime has probably sold the goods he brought back. It is high time for him to give a feast for his associates, who spent months traveling with him and shared his hardships and dangers, to celebrate the happy return home. You should speak to brother Hsi-feng and urge him to comply at last with this duty, proper to his position." Mother Shu was about to reply when the subject of discussion himself appeared. He looked quite distraught and cried excitedly to the two women. "Have you heard the sad news yet? Cousin Yu dead, brother Liu disappeared." "We have just been speaking about it." "What a sad case," sighed Aunt Shu. "They say he has gone off with a strange Taoist monk." "That makes the story all the more weird. How on earth could such a sensible young man as that Liu get such a crazy idea? As he is your friend and is all alone in the world, you must exert yourself for him and have him searched for. He will scarcely go far with that wretched begging monk. Presumably he is hiding in some temple in the neighborhood. My men and I have already searched for him everywhere inside and outside the town, but there was no trace of him anywhere." "Good, then you have already satisfied your obligations as a friend. But do not neglect your own affairs because of all this. You are bound in gratitude to prepare a worthy feast for your men who traveled 3,000 li and shared all troubles and dangers faithfully with you for 4 or 5 months. They well deserve it." Hsi-feng agreed with her. That same day he sent out invitations to a number of his business managers and traveling companions, summoning them to a banquet. When the guests were assembled round the table, one of them called out during the banquet, "2 of our good companions are still missing from the table." "Who then?" they were asked. "Mr. Chia-lion and our host's sworn friend, the cold knight. Why have they not been invited?" Hsi-feng's face darkened and he sighed deeply. "My cousin set out for Ping-and-Chow again a short time ago," he said. "And as for my friend Liu, the mere mention of his name gives me pain. It is a very strange story. He suddenly renounced the world and disappeared in the company of a stranger, a Taoist priest, and he related all he knew of the tragic outcome of the engagement of his friend and of his sudden disappearance." "How strange!" they all said, and one of the business managers went on to tell. A similar case was spoken of recently by the customers in the shop. The story was of a monk who with 3 or 4 sentences bewitched somebody and made him invisible. I do not know any more details. We were busy serving and had no time to pay attention to the idle gossip of customers." "Oh, what nonsense! This is sure to be quite a different kind of case," said another skeptically. "A courageous, sensible, strong fellow, used to arms like Mr. Liu, would certainly never allow himself to be bewitched by a wandering monk. Presumably he only pretended to join him in order to get behind his magic tricks and hocus-pocus. He will undoubtedly get the upper hand of the swindler in it." The end. "That is probably what has happened," agreed Hsi-feng warmly. "Really, these mountebanks who bluff and dupe people with their tricks should be put down with an iron hand. Have you not had a search made for your lost friend?" they asked him. Yes, of course, I have had him searched for everywhere, both inside and outside the city walls. But, and you may laugh at this, he cannot be traced anywhere, declared Hsi-feng, becoming despondent once more. The company around the table fell into an embarrassed silence. Nothing could be heard but long and short sighs. No one could be merry anymore. And after just a few more glasses of wine, the party broke up in depressed mood. A few days afterwards, she went to visit Hsi-feng in a free hour to inquire after her health, but she did not stay long. She thought she perceived a certain uneasiness in the air. She noticed excited, whispering waiting maids and caught something about cross-examinations to which these porters or those servants had been subjected by Hsi-feng. Therefore, she did not want to be in the way. She had hardly gone when Hsi-feng sent for little Wang, the gatekeeper of the second gate. "Oh, how was it? What have you heard?" she asked the waiting maid Ping Er before little Wang arrived. "The maid who secretly informed me has been eavesdropping just now at the second gate on a conversation between little Wang and two of the master's servants. It was about a second Nai, who was much more beautiful and much kinder and more friendly than the old Nai, by which they meant you." Little Wang was announced. Feng asked one Ping Er to be silent and ordered that little Wang should come in. He remained standing timidly on the threshold of the antechamber in a respectful attitude, his hands hanging down by his sides. "Come nearer, I wish to question you," ordered Hsi-feng, whereupon he advanced to the threshold of the inner chamber. "What do you know about the person with whom my husband associates outside?" Little Wang bent one knee. "The slave performs his service at the second gateway day after day. How can he know what the master does outside? Naturally, you know about nothing." Little Wang went down on both knees. "Very well, then. I was present by chance just now when little Hsi-feng and little Hsi were gossiping at the second gate. I only told them to be quiet. I understood nothing of what they were talking about. You should question little Heng. He always accompanies the master when he goes out." "Ah, you are just as good for nothing as the other pack," cried Hsi-feng angrily. "You two are all tangled and matted together like creepers. But do not imagine that you can deceive me. Run and bring little Hsi-feng here. I shall examine him first. Then you shall have another turn." "Shift," stuttered little Wang. And having made a kowtow, he picked himself up quickly and ran out, returning very soon with little Hsi-feng. Little Hsi-feng stood timidly hesitant on the outer threshold. "Come in," Hsi-feng ordered him. "That's nice business you have been up to with your master. Now, out with the story." The severity of her face and voice shattered the air of confidence which he had put on up to now. In his confusion, he could think of nothing better to do than to fall upon his knees and press his forehead to the ground. "You are not implicated in the case yourself," continued Hsi-feng in a milder tone. "But why did you not notify me at once? I cannot help reproaching you. Now please, out with the whole truth. Then I will spare you. But woe betide you if you only come out with empty evasions. Better make sure first that your brain box is well screwed on." Shaking with fear, little Hsi-feng slid a little nearer and made another kowtow. The slave is not at all aware of what harm he is supposed to have done with the master. He said now, as calmly and boldly as possible, "Give him a couple of blows," ordered Hsi-feng, blazing up in anger. Little Wang rushed up and was just about to carry out her order when she stopped him. "No, let him box his own ears. There will be time enough later on for other hands to belabor this tortoise." Little Sing bent to the right and to the left, dealing himself with a swift sweeping movement, a good dozen heavy clouts on the ears, until his mistress called stop. "Well, what do you know about this new Nai, whom your master is said to have picked up in the city?" Little Sing pulled off his cap and beat his bare forehead a couple of times on the earthenware tiles of the floor, so forcibly that the thuds resounded dully like mountain echoes. "I'd beg for mercy, and I will certainly not lie again," he declared. "Stand up and speak." Little Sing picked himself up and told what he knew, how one day the house steward Yu went out to the Temple of the Iron Railings to Prince Chan for money. How Mr. Chia Lien had accompanied him back to the Eastern Palace, and how he and Mr. Chia Young had discussed the two sisters-in-law of Prince Chen on the way, and how Mr. Chia Lion had indulged in admiring praise of their superior qualities and virtues. How Mr. Chia Yong had offered his services to procure the second Yu-girl as a secondary wife for him. He had got thus far with his confession when Hsi-feng, almost choking with rage, burst out. So, it's that one. And a relative into the bargain. Such miserable, faceless tortoise behavior. Little Hsi-feng, alarmed, paused in his report, made a hasty kowtow, and then stared resignedly in front of him. Get on. Why do you not talk? Hsi-feng urged him. But will the M9 not hurt the slave if he speaks on? Asked Little Hsi-feng, wanting to be sure first. Nonsense. Go on. And little Hsi-feng continued to relate how his master had entered joyfully into his nephew's plan. How the plan was subsequently carried out is not known to me. Of course, a servant cannot know everything that the master does or does not do. Go on. Then, later on, Mr. Chia Yong procured and furnished a house for Mr. Chia Lian. A house, where then? He was again interrupted. Behind the Eastern Palace. Aha, and we noticed nothing of all this. We must have been simply dead, said Hsi-feng, turning a reproachful glance on the waiting maid Ping Er. Then Prince Chen paid an indemnity to the family Chang. I do not know the exact amount, continued Little Hing. The family Chang. What then? Has that family got to do with the matter? You must know that the second MIE. He stopped short and gave himself a resounding box on the ear. How could he so forget himself as to mention a second Nai in the presence of the Nai? This comical act of voluntary self-chastisement made Hsi-feng smile in spite of the seriousness of the situation, and the waiting maid, and serving women to the right and to the left quickly put their hands over their mouths and had to laugh too. The younger sister of Princess Chen, he corrected himself, was originally betrothed to a certain Chang Hua of the family of Change. The family has recently been in very poor circumstances, and was therefore willing to renounce the engagement on payment of an indemnity. Did you hear that? See what revelations are coming to light, exclaimed Hsi-feng, shaking her head and turning to her attendants. And yet this impudent fellow asserted in the beginning that he knew nothing. Mr. Chia Lian had the house newly painted and beautifully papered and furnished, and then he brought home the second Yu, who escorted her. Only Mr. Chia Young and a few waiting maids and serving women. Not Princess Chen? No, she only paid her a visit 2 days later and brought several presents with her. So this is the alleged business which kept him for days on end in the Eastern Palace. Hist, says I. Is anyone else living with that person? Her mother, and also, until a short time ago, the younger sister who cut her throat? Why, actually. Did she do that? Little Hsi-feng told of her unhappy love and her betrothal to the cold night, which had been broken off. He did well to free himself in time from that disreputable crowd, said Hsi-feng derisively. Anything else? I know nothing more, and every word I have reported is certainly true. The Nai can make inquiries, and if she can convict me of a lie, she may have me beaten to death if she likes. I would have reason enough for that, you ape. Stand up. Little Hsi-feng kowtowed once more, stood up, and slunk out. He was already on the outer threshold when Hsi-feng called him back. You seem in a mighty hurry to be off to your new Nai. You would like to divulge everything to her and earn a reward, wouldn't you? But you will do nothing of the sort. From today on you will not stir a step to go to that house, but will remain permanently at my disposal. Is that understood? She promised Little Hsi-feng and withdrew again, to be called back once more. Now you are going to run off and repeat everything to your master, are you not? Your servant will not dare. I would not advise you to if you value your skin. Off with you! Clear out! Now little Wang was called in. I see. Feng looked at him sharply for a moment, and then she said, You are a good fellow, little Wang. I'm pleased with you. And in future, always be sure to tell me when you leave something outside. Can I rely on you? Very well, you may go. Now, what do you think of that? A nice story, is it not? She said, turning to Ping Er. Ping Er only smiled. Hsi-feng threw herself on the divan, took a sip of tea, and settled down to think. Suddenly she raised her brows. She had thought of a plan. She beckoned to Ping Er. "We must act, and at once, before my husband is back from his travels," she said, and began to explain her plan to the waiting maid. During the next few days, the residence of the absent Xie Lian became a hive of activity. A crowd of builders, carpenters, painters, joiners, and other artisans arrived, and on the instructions of Hsi-feng they put in order the empty eastern wing, consisting of 3 rooms. The rooms were fitted with the same kind of wallpaper, carpets, furniture, covers, curtains, and other equipment as the rooms which Hsi-feng herself occupied. On the day that the work was completed, and the workers left the house, it was the 14th of the 9th month, Hsi-feng sent a message to the ancestors that she intended to visit this and that temple to burn incense and pray on the following day. The next day she got into her carriage and, accompanied by the waiting maids Ping Erhan Little Lung, as well as the wife of the porter Little Wang and the wife of the steward Chu Jui, went off, not to the temples named, but to the house of the second Yu in the lane of the flowering branch. Little Sing was taken along and had to show the way and announce the visitor. The second Yu was more than a little surprised when, quite suddenly, the wife of Little Pao came running in, terribly excited and trembling all over, and announced, "The great Nai is coming to visit." She pulled herself together at once, however, ran to the door and accompanied her visitor courteously into the reception room, politely laid cushions for her in the place of honor, and had tea served to her. She excused herself on the plea of her youthfulness for all that had happened. Everything, she said, had been done over her head and through her mother and Princess Chen, and she assured Madame Hsi-feng of how honored and happy she was at the visit, and how eager to hear the instructions of the elder sister, and to serve her with dutiful respect. Hsi-feng was dressed completely in white and silver gray, to give the impression that she was mourning for the deceased third Yu, for whom she in fact cared less than nothing. To the kowtow of submission which the other performed before her, she replied with a slight bow and said, purely out of understandable tenderness and care for his health, and also to spare his parents annoyance and trouble, "I always warn my husband against spending the night away from home, between flowers and beneath willow trees. Unfortunately, he has completely misunderstood my well-intended advice. Now, if it were a question of some dubious person, he would perhaps be right in concealing an attachment from me. But the fact that he has chosen a highly respectable woman such as you, dear sister, for his sidechamber makes it a different matter and quite in order. No one in his senses could blame him for it. Such things are, after all, customary in other families. I myself have always actually advised him to such a step. I have even offered him Ping Er. It is indeed my own wish that he should have a little boy and legitimate heir, who would one day be a support and comfort to myself in my old age. It was quite wrong of him to keep this matter secret from me through quite unfounded fear of my jealousy. I am neither narrow-minded nor jealous, and call heaven and earth to witness that. I only heard of the matter just by chance a few days ago. My husband is away traveling at present, so I cannot speak to him myself. In order to show you meantime, dear sister, how greatly my husband has misjudged me, I have come to you today to invite you earnestly and lovingly to give up your isolation and come all. Let us live together in future and unite in a sisterly way in caring for our husband's health and well-being. We owe this to the strict requirements of good form and propriety. This living separately is profitable neither to your reputation nor to mine, nor to that of our husband. How do I stand in the eyes of the servants who, as it is, detest me because I keep a somewhat strict eye on them? No, the present situation is untenable, so do me the favor, dear sister, of moving over to my place. As regards accommodation, and food, and clothing, and service, you will have exactly the same as I have. You are such a sensible woman. You will be a valuable and inestimable support to me, and there will be an end, once and for all, to the servants' gossip. When our husband comes home and sees us peacefully united, he will feel penitent, and will realize that he has shamefully misjudged me. But if you do not wish to move over to me, then I am determined to move over to you, dear sister. And in this event, I hope you will put in a good word for me with our husband, so that he will not tear us apart again. I shall be most glad to do everything for you, to do your hair, and prepare your foot bath, and perform every service which you may ask, if only I can be with you." She had spoken with growing emotion, which was meant to simulate sincere feeling, and she now began actually to sob and weep. Emotion seemed so genuine that the second Yu was quite touched, and her eyes too filled with tears. At a sign from her mistress, the wife of the steward Cho Ju-ri now had to take out of her cotton bag 4 pieces of beautiful silk cloth, and a pair of gold bangles, and of earrings set with yes, and passed them to the second Yu as a token of friendship. The second Yu was now fully convinced that Hsi-feng must be a most kind-hearted woman, and that everything which little Heng had recently told about her wicked character must be slander and servants' gossip. She gave up her previous reserve, became talkative, opened her heart wide, laid bare her thoughts, and trustfully accepted the invitation to move over to the Western Palace that very day. "But what will become of my household here?" she asked. "That is very simple. Your new dwelling is ready and furnished, so we only need to take over your clothing and linen and other personal belongings. All the furniture can be left here." The second Yu indicated the few trunks and objects which represented her personal belongings, dressed herself ready to depart, and allowed Hsi-feng to take her by the hand and lead her to the carriage. On the journey in the carriage, Hsi-feng said to her, confidentially, "Over here our household rules are rather strict. So far the old Tai knows nothing of this story. If she now learns that our husband has married secretly in the middle of the mourning period, she will be very angry and probably have him nearly beaten to death in punishment. Therefore, it is better for me not to present you to the old Tai straight away, and not to take you into my own home yet, but to put you up in the park for the time being. You will be well looked after there, and quite safe from prying eyes. In the meantime, I will take further measures and carefully prepare the old Tai do exactly as you think best," replied the second Yu submissively. As prearranged, the carriage entered the precincts of the Western Palace, not through the main entrance but unobtrusively through a back gate. Soon after passing in, Hsi-feng dismissed her attendants and smuggled the second Yu through yet another side gate into the Park of Delightful Vision and took her thence, unobserved, to Widow Chu's in the rice farm. She told the widow about the matter, and asked her to keep the second Yu with her for a few days. At the same time, she ordered the servants in the park, under the threat of severe punishment, to keep strict silence and to watch the newcomer's every step, and under no circumstances to allow her to leave the park. Furthermore, she deprived the second Yu of her former servants, and gave her instead one of her own maids named Shan, to whom she gave her own special instructions. 3 days later, the second Yu wanted to send the waiting maid Shan to Hsi-feng to get some new hair oil. She met with unexpected resistance. "Indeed, you have strange ideas," said the maid very cheekily. "Madame Hsi-feng has more important things in her head and cannot trouble about such trifles. She is on the go the whole day, taking orders from the old Tai or Princess Xia or the Tai Cheng. Then she has to look after all the young ladies in the park and the many guests and visitors, and finally she is responsible for all the several hundred servants. Everyone turns to her. She is besieged on every side with questions and requests. At a moderate estimate, she has to settle every day 1 to 2 dozen big matters and 30 to 40 smaller ones. Thousands go through her hands every day. How, then, can I trouble her with such trifles? You must get accustomed to having patience. Just remember that you did not marry into our house in an open, correct manner. All the more reason, then, to be unobtrusive and quiet. Be thankful that she has treated you in such a friendly way up to the present, and do not lose her favor by your folly. Otherwise it may go badly with you." There was nothing for the second Yu to do but to put up with the reprimand and be silent. Gradually the maid Shan began to show all kinds of negligence in her service. She served the meals unpunctually, and what she did put on the table either at midday or in the evening usually consisted only of stale leavings. 2 or 3 times the second Yu ventured a remark, but each time she was so intimidated by offended looks and indignant demeanor that she did not venture another word of complaint, and put up with everything. Hsi-feng herself came over once a week. On these visits she was outwardly All friendliness and kindness, and loving expressions such as dear sister and good sister, simply flowed from her lips. If you have any complaint to make about the service, let me know at once, she said, and she put on an act of lecturing the staff of the rice farm, saying that she would see through it and take ruthless measures if they failed in their duty and were negligent in their service behind her back. The kind-hearted Yu was sorry for the servants who were thus rebuked, and whenever she thoughtlessly opened her mouth to complain about this or that, she shut it quickly again, wishing to spare her servants and not to make herself unpopular. And so everything remained just as it was after these visits of inspection. Meanwhile, Hsi-feng was making secret inquiries about the past life of the second Yu through her confidant, the porter Little Wang, and so she learned of the latter's first engagement to young Chang Hua, who was now 19 years of age and an utter wastrel and loafer. His parents had cast him off long ago on account of his dissolute way of life. Consequently, he himself knew nothing as yet about the cancellation of his engagement and the indemnity of 20 taels which Prince Chen had paid to his parents. Now Hsi-feng sent Little Wang secretly to Chang Hua, and won him for her little game by a payment of 20 taels. He was to serve a right, accusing Chia Lian of having enticed away his betrothed and married her in the middle of a period of public and family mourning without the knowledge of his legal wife and of the family elder, after having obliged her by coercion and money to cancel her previous engagement to him, the plaintiff. Cheng Hua had hesitated to make a direct accusation against a member of the powerful Chia clan, whom he did not wish to quarrel with. It was therefore agreed that Little Wang should take the accusation upon himself as the alleged go between an instigator. Phoenix was less interested in actually carrying through the lawsuit than in exposing the gang, namely the chief culprits of the story, her cousin Prince Chen, his wife, and their son Chia Young, and frightening them by the imminent prospect of a public scandal. Moreover, she intended to step in just at the right moment if the action should take an unfavorable turn. Cheng Hua accordingly appeared one day before the public session of the court, called attention to himself by the customary cry of injustice, and handed in his writ. In response to the writ, the magistrate sent his greencoats next day to the Yunko Palace to arrest the accused porter Little Wang and hail him before the court. Through respect, the greencoats did not enter the lordly mansion themselves, and were about to send a servant to the custodian of the inner gate politely requesting him to come out. But that was not at all necessary. Little Wang had reckoned on their coming and was already waiting cheerfully for them in the street in front of the gate. No doubt, honored brothers, you have come for me. Very well, seize me and hold me fast. He invited the greencoats peaceably and good-humoredly, for he knew in advance that no harm would come to him. But, good elder brother, how can we do it? We only want you to come with us without any fuss. They invited him just as politely and escorted him to the court. The magistrate showed him the indictment handed in yesterday. Little Wang read it, kowtowed, and declared, "That is quite correct, but I myself have nothing to do with it. Chang Hua has merely drawn me into it, because we have been on unfriendly terms for a long time past. You will have to arrest other people." The plaintiff Chang Hua likewise kowtowed and explained, "That is also correct, but I did not dare to take action against the employers, therefore I named the servant. Stupid fellow. We are standing here in an imperial court, before which we are all equal, whether master or servant. So now cite the names," replied Little Wang. Chang Hua now named Chia Young, the son of Prince Chen, as being really the guilty person. The magistrate therefore could not do otherwise than issue a summons against Chia Young. The same evening, Hsi-feng secretly sent the magistrate 300 taels to his house with a message requesting him, for this and that reason, to proceed without consideration against her accused clan, and to take a really high hand with them. She was very anxious, so the message ran to give her people a proper scare, and the magistrate, as a good friend of her uncle, Marshal Wang Tu's 10, felt obliged to comply with the request which she had backed with such a considerable gift. Prince Chen and his son were terribly shocked when news came that this obscure individual, Chang Hua, had dragged their honorable name before the magistrate's court. Prince Chen foamed at the mouth over the colossal impudence of the fellow. He had vainly believed that he had silenced the family Chang once for all with the indemnity of 20 taels. Now he would have to dig deep into his pockets again and quickly produce 200 nice shining silver pieces to buy the magistrate's favor, just his half. And his son were discussing the annoying affair and the countermeasures to be taken, who should appear quite unexpectedly but cousin Hsi-feng. The father and son would have given anything to escape this meeting, but it was too late. "That's a pretty business you two have been up to with my husband," she said, bursting in on them, while she caught Hsi-feng by the hand. As he murmured an embarrassed "Tang Yan," the prince succeeded in squeezing past her and gaining the exit, an urgent business engagement. He excused himself with a glib smile. "But my son will keep you company for the present and see that you get the best things from the kitchen." In a trice he was out the door and had mounted his horse and gone off. In the meantime, Mother Yu had appeared from the next room. Seeing the visitors' angry face, she guessed there was trouble brewing. "You seem to be out of humor. May one ask?" she began, in reply. Hsi-feng spat right into her face. "You are welcome to ask," she hissed. "Am I to accept it quietly when you smuggle in your jilted daughter and secretly pawn her off on my husband? If you had just done it openly and honestly, and in the proper manner with 3 negotiators and 6 witnesses. But no, you did it on the sly. And, what is doubly incorrect in a time of public and family mourning. And now we shall have the devil to pay. A man has appeared and has brought the matter publicly before the court, just so that everyone will hear what an abominable, narrow-minded, jealous woman I am. People will point their finger at me and persuade my husband to divorce me. What have I done to you that you treat me so meanly? Is the old Taitai perchance behind it all? Did she inspire the whole base plan in order to get rid of me in this way? Well, it will all come to light in time. First, you will come to the court with me, and let each of us render an account to the judge, so that the truth may triumph. And then let us appear before the assembled clan at home, and let us each justify herself. If the clan finds me guilty, very well then. They may write the letter of divorce for me, and I will leave the house voluntarily." She began to weep loudly, and to drag Mother Yu by the hand to the door, as if she wanted to set out for the court with her straight away. Utterly dismayed, Hsi-feng got in front of her, threw himself at her feet, performed a kowtow, and begged for mercy. "May lightning strike you and split you an eye?" "You crazy creature!" she roared at him. "Shame on you, you good-for-nothing, shameless intriguer and disturber of family peace, scorner of laws and rights and of all order of heaven and of earth. The spirits of all your ancestors and the shades of your late wife will turn away from you in abhorrence and disgust. And a creature like you has the impudence to want to harangue me." She raised her hand and dealt him blows right and left. Hsi-feng bent down again quickly to make another kowtow. "Do not excite yourself, Aunt," he begged. "For the sake of the one day in 1,000 that I am good, please relent. Spare your nerves and your gentle hand. If I deserve blows in the ear, I can deal them myself." And he gave himself a few powerful slaps. Then he started to upbraid himself. "May such a thing never happen to me again. To count up to 4 and skip the 3. To follow the uncle and to overlook the esteemed aunt. That indeed is no manners. What, then, has the esteemed aunt done to you, that you should join with others in being so abominable and irresponsible towards her?" The bystanders had difficulty in keeping from laughing aloud when they heard him abusing himself in this way. But Hsi-feng threw herself on Mother Yu's breast with a pathetic outcry, calling upon heaven and earth. Come with me to the court, otherwise the constable may come and fetch us by force," she sobbed. "And afterwards let us go together to the old Taitai and have the clan judge us. I shall bow to their judgment and leave the house at once if the verdict is against me. I've already fetched your daughter away and lodged her in the park for the time being. I have, as a matter of fact, furnished a permanent home for her in my own house, where she will want for nothing and fare exactly as I do as regards clothing, food, and service. But up till now I have not dared to let her be seen by the old Taitai, as I wished to spare the old lady annoyance and excitement. But the matter cannot be hushed up any longer. Now that it has become a public scandal, the old Taitai will have to hear the truth. It is terrible that she has to experience such a disgrace in her old age. What has happened to the good name of our family? It is gone. And besides, there is all this unnecessary expense. I have secretly taken 500 ounces from the funds and passed them to the magistrate in the hope that he will dismiss the case. It's a pity to lose that good money. And I do not even know yet if what I did is of any avail. The magistrate seems to have taken my gift badly, for he has held my messenger and put him in chains. Oh, what will the illustrious ancestors of our house and their realm of shades think of us? She again wept aloud and even hit her head against the wall as if she wanted to take her life. Mother, you felt crushed and needed to noodle dough by this outbreak of despair. Her dress was wet with her tears. Now she in her turn stormed against Hsi-feng, ill-behaved creature. She cried, "You have made a fine mess of things, you and your father, and I had warned you beforehand." "Well, if you were against it, why did you not open your mouth and say a word to me?" interjected Hsi-feng. "Your mouth is not stopped with eggplant apples or constrained by a bit and curb. I certainly would not have let it come to this public lawsuit and scandal if I had been informed in good time. You could well refrain from reproaching others and reproach yourself instead for your stupidity and your culpable silence." Oh, how cleverly she knew how to twist things round, after having herself goaded Chang Hua into bringing an action. The various secondary wives and serving women and waiting maids who were standing about felt so full of pity for Mother Yu, seeing her so cruelly driven into a corner, that all together they fell at the feet of the angry Hsi-feng, appealing to her great wisdom and understanding, and implored in chorus for peace and mercy, for she had now trampled on the poor old lady long enough. True, their entreaties had the effect of making Hsi-feng stop shouting, and she put her tousled coiffure in order again. But she was very far from being pacified. She disdained the tea which was offered to her and threw it straight away on the floor. She was itching to call Prince Chen to account next. "Fetch your father here. I want to ask him a few questions personally," she ordered Hsi-feng peremptorily. "I demand an explanation from him as to whether he considers it to be consistent with the requirements of propriety, and good custom for a nephew of the deceased to go off gaily and marry in the middle of the period of mourning for the family elder. A little instruction can do him no harm and may deter him from giving bad example to you young people in the future." Hsi-feng quickly threw himself on his knees, hit his forehead on the ground, and protested. "My parents have had nothing to do with the whole business. I alone am guilty. I was the sole instigator. The esteemed aunt may chastise the unworthy nephew as much as she wishes, and he will bear it in silence. But let her please spare his parents. He could not survive it if she does not. He also trusts and implores that the honored aunt may manage to stop the action. The stupid unworthy nephew does not feel that he is equal to such a task, and depends entirely on the wisdom of the honored aunt." He accompanied his humble speech with repeated kowtows. Hsi-feng was pacified to some extent. She raised him up, and then sighing and wiping away her ears, she turned to Mother Yu. "Do not be angry with me. In my youth and inexperience I have let myself go somewhat, and offended you greatly, but the painful news had so surprised and dumbfounded me. Forgive me, and now we must act wisely and reasonably. First of all, this unpleasant action must be settled. You must have a word with Cousin Chen about it without fail. Do not worry. The matter will be arranged by us to your satisfaction," said Mother Yu and Hsi-feng as if with one voice. "The 500 ounces which you have already spent will, naturally, be made good to you. On no account must you suffer any further monetary loss in this matter. It would indeed be irresponsible for us to allow such a thing. But we have yet another request to make of you. May we count upon you to set the matter right as far as possible with the old Taitai, and not to put us in too unkindly a light with her?" "You are asking a bit too much of me," replied Hsi. "And coolly, first you do me a grievous wrong, and then you ask me to come forward and plead for you. Surely rather a lot to ask. Now, I am of a very kind-hearted nature, and moreover, I am sincerely happy to have a sister and companion coming to my house. I have not been able to sleep for many nights. So great has been my joyful anticipation. If only this obscure fellow, this confounded Chang Hua, had not come between us with his lawsuit. How stupid of Cousin Chen to run away like that. I wanted to discuss with him some means of getting rid of this mischievous litigant. Do not worry. We shall be able to cope with the fellow all right, Hsi-feng assured her zealously. That poor devil of a starving wretch will be glad to withdraw his accusation for a small indemnity. We will see to that. He will give us no more bother in the future, we can assure you. That's all right, if only it works. As long as the money lasts, he may perhaps keep his mouth shut, but as soon as he is without a penny again, he will rest. Tick the quarrel. In the long run, it is useless to waste money on him. We shall have no peace from him whatever we do, said Hsi-feng skeptically. Well, one could give him the choice of either the money or the woman, said Hsi-feng with a smile. If he positively insists on his claim and demands the woman, we shall just oblige him and hand over my second aunt. I would undertake to persuade my aunt to comply. Under no circumstances, interrupted Hsi-feng quickly, for she saw that her further plans were being jeopardized. I do not wish under any circumstances to be separated from your aunt, my dear new sister. Would I not lose face if I were to deliver her up again after having once accepted her? No, no, she shall remain, and you may go on confidently trying to stop Chang Hua's mouth with money. To her secret satisfaction, Hsi-feng agreed to this. Very well, the most important thing is to get rid of this Chang Hua. And now, let us go together and inform the old Tai, she decided. But what am I to tell her? Asked Mother Yu, quite alarmed. Oh, if one is so helpless as that, one should not risk such daring undertakings, remarked Hsi-feng mockingly. But since I am such a good-natured and sympathetic soul, I shall speak for you. Do not show yourself over there for the present. I shall present your daughter to the old Tai alone first. I shall tell her more or less that I intended in any case to buy my husband 2 secondary wives, as I could scarcely count on having any male descendant or on living much longer myself, and that recently I had become convinced of the sterling qualities of your second daughter and had given her the preference as a relation. In consideration of her rather straitened circumstances and to free her from anxiety about her livelihood, I had decided to depart a little from strict custom and take her into my house, even before the end of the 100 days' mourning, and that as soon as the mourning period is over the official wedding ceremony will take place. There now, that is what I shall say. I shall thus take any eventual blame on myself. Are you satisfied? Mother Yu and nephew Hsi-feng enthusiastically praised her generosity and wisdom, and gave her to understand that the princess would pay her a special visit of thanks. That is all right. I do not want any thanks, said Hsi-feng coolly. I shall certainly know for the future what to think of you. Young man, she said sharply, pointing her finger at Hsi-feng. But aunt, this one little time, you will surely forgive the wicked nephew, begged Hsi-feng, promptly falling on his knees again. She threw back her head as if she wanted to overlook him, and turned towards the door.